Okay, so now we're going to work on our connectors, our key minder, our zipper panel, and our zippers. So we will need to grab all the pieces that we have cut for these. So for the crossbody strap connectors, your piece will be CSC. You'll also need SHC. You'll need your key minder, KM piece, your zipper tabs, ZT, your 3 zippers that you've cut, and your trim or zipper panels, TZP. We're going to start with our crossbody strap connectors. So we'll move everything out of the way because we don't need those. For your crossbody strap connector, depending on the width of hardware, yours may be wider. Mine is going to be finished at 1 inch wide, so I've cut my piece accordingly. You're going to draw a line down the entire length of the strap connector, right down the center. Then you will take each raw edge and fold them in and press so that they meet that center line you drew. Your finished piece will be the width of your hardware when you are done. So mine is 1 inch wide. Yours may look a little bit different because you may be using wider hardware. So if you are using 1.5 inch hardware, your piece will measure 1.5 inches when you are done. Another tip I wanted to share with you is something that I do when I'm using cotton. I even do it sometimes with cork, vinyl, or faux leather. It just adds a bit of strength, not only to my strap connectors, but I also do this often with my handles and my crossbody strap. I use a piece of grosgrain ribbon in between the layers so that it's hidden. And what I do is I use a piece of double-sided tape. You can also use a glue stick for this. Just allow the glue stick to dry before you sew so that you don't gum up in your needle. If you don't want to wait for it to dry, you can always press it with your iron. That will help it dry a little bit faster. So you place the piece of double-sided tape all the way down the center. I just place it right on the line I drew because I've already pressed my strap or whatever piece I'm working on towards the center. The size of grosgrain ribbon that I'm using is 5/8 of an inch wide. You can also use 1 inch, you can also use 7/8 of an inch. That doesn't really matter. I'm just using 5/8 of an inch because this is what I had on hand. If your machine struggles with bulk, because when we attach this, we are going to be sewing through some other layers, I do recommend using a thinner grosgrain that will keep it out of your seam allowance when you're sewing it to attach it to your bag. So 5/8 of an inch would be enough to give you that seam allowance and you won't be sewing through the grosgrain as well. There we go. So I've stuck it down the center of my crossbody strap connector. You can see it there. I just used white. That way there it doesn't show through. And it's there. Again, this helps add a little bit of extra strength when I'm using it on the bag, because I'm always worried about some straps coming undone. So this was something I found that I like to do just for that extra security. Once you have it all pressed into the center, once you have that all down in the center, you can go ahead and add some pins or clips to hold everything in place. And then you're going to sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on both long edges of the crossbody strap. You'll also repeat crossbody strap connector, sorry. You'll also repeat this for the other crossbody strap connector. Again, adding the grosgrain ribbon isn't needed. This is just a personal preference, something I like to do for the extra strength. And there we go. I'm all pinned. Now again, I'm going to sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down both long edges of the crossbody strap connector. And that is how your crossbody strap connector will look when you have stitched it down. Again, I have grosgrain ribbon in there just for the extra strength and security when I'm using this as a crossbody strap bag. I'm going to repeat this for the other side. Once you're done your crossbody strap connectors, you can set them to the side. We don't need them right now. And we'll need our SHC pieces. If you are doing the handles and straps this way, this is the option you will do. If you are doing it where you're not using any hardware, again, this part of the video you can just skip. So on your pieces, you will draw a line down the center of the strap or handle connector. You can use some double-sided tape, place it on both sides of the line you drew in the center. Again, just like we did with the crossbody strap connector, you're going to fold the long raw edges in to meet that center line. And these will also be finished the same width as your hardware. So again, depending on the hardware width you're using, these will be finished at 1 inch or 1.5 inch wide. You'll do this for all 4 pieces. And then you will stitch these along the finished edge using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'll go ahead and stitch one just to show you how it'll look. So this is how the crossbody strap, or sorry, the strap handle connector will look. So it's finished the same width as the hardware I'm using. You'll repeat this for the last 3 SHC pieces. So just one more time to repeat what I'm doing. I've placed a piece of double-sided tape on either side of the line I drew down the center. I'm then going to press the raw edges of the strap or handle connector in to meet that center line. Once I have it all pressed in to meet the center line, if you're using an iron, by the way, I'm not an iron, cotton, quilt cotton for this, you don't have to use double-sided tape. You can just press with your iron, but if you're using vinyl or cork or faux leather, you can't press that with an iron, so this is why I'm using double-sided tape. So once I have it all pressed in to meet the center line, I'm then going to stitch along the folded edge or finished edge using a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And there they are, the 4 strap or handle connectors all stitched and done. We can place these off to the side as well for now. I'm going to put a little clip with them just so none of them fall and I don't lose any. And I'll do the same with my crossbody strap connectors too. That way there they stay together. Okay, next we're going to work on our key minder. Your KM piece or your key minder piece. What you will do is fold it in half along the long edges so that they meet and press. After you press that, you'll fold the raw edges in to meet the center and press again. Then you'll fold everything back up along that original center crease and fold it up, and that will conceal all the raw edges. One of these ends will be hidden in the seams of the bag and one will not. So the one end, you'll want to press that in by 1/4 of an inch, press it, then refold everything back up. I have, as I mentioned with my handles and straps, I have a video tutorial on my YouTube channel for how I do that differently to get a nice clean finished edge. So you can go ahead and check that video out before you sew your key minder so that you know how I do that, because that's what I'm going to do for this video. Again, you only need to do that for one end because there's only one end that is going to be seen in the bag when it is completed. So once you have everything folded and pressed, you're going to stitch your key minder along all 4 edges using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Don't forget to start and stop, or back stitch at start and stop. Next, you want to take your hardware, your 1/2 inch swivel hook, and you're going to slide it onto the finished edge of your key minder. You'll fold your key minder strap around the swivel hook and pin it in place. I'm using, or folding mine, sorry, over by an inch. You can either sew this, so sew as close as you can to the hardware down and make a box, then sew an X, or use a rivet to hold it in place. I'm going to go ahead and use a rivet for mine rather than sewing. And that is how your completed key minder will look when you're done. You have a swivel hook at the end and raw edge on the other edge of your key minder hook. Put that to the side for now. I just attach it to my crossbody strap so it stays together. Next, we're going to work on our zipper panels. You'll want to grab both your lining and your exterior zipper panels, or as they are called in the pattern, TZP or trim and zipper panels. They will look like this. First step you need to do is mark a 1/2 inch on the wrong side in on the short edges. So you'll see as I did here, you'll mark it and you'll press this. You'll do this on all 4 zipper panels. Once that is done, you'll then flip them over, and on the right side, you will mark again a 1/2 inch in from the edge. You don't need to do this on this side all the way down, just in the center. So when you put your zipper panels together, your zipper will be in the center. So you only need to mark that 1/2 inch in the center here. So this is where you're lining up your zipper, completed zipper, when you attach it to your zipper panel. I was going to say zipper tab. So there's the 1/2 inch mark. This is where your zipper will line up when we attach it. Repeat this for the lining. Again, you just need to do it on the middle. You don't have to mark it all the way down. Next, what you need to do is take your zipper and you want to turn the one raw edge at the top of the zipper, so where the zipper will be when closed. So my zipper is here when closed. This is where it is when it's zipped up and closed. You want to turn these edges in at a 90-degree angle and stitch them in place. I also have a video on my YouTube channel for how I do this. So if you'd like to view that, you can go ahead, pause the video, and go view that. Or whatever method you have for turning your zippers under, please do use that. There is no right or wrong way. Another thing I like to do is I like to backstitch over the end of this part of the zipper a couple times. This just helps create a zipper stop so that my zipper pull doesn't accidentally come off when I'm unzipping and zipping while I'm sewing this to the zipper panels. So just like that, creates a little zipper stop, and now my zipper can't come off. And now I will sew these ends that I folded in by 90-degree. And there you have it. The two ends are folded at a 90-degree angle, and I've created this zipper stop so my zipper can't come off this end of the zipper tape. And that is how it looks. Next, we need one of our exterior zipper panels. So again, you marked that 1/2 inch mark in the centers. So when these are together, this will be the center where my zipper will be, right here. Will look like that, obviously with it all stitched. So you're going to take your zipper and place it so it is right sides together with your zipper panel, lining up this folded edge of your zipper to the 1/2 inch mark that you made. If this is easier, you can unzip your zipper. I like to do this first with the zipper zipped, then I unzip it. So I've lined up that folded clean edge of my zipper with the 1/2 inch mark. The other end is the folded end. You're not doing anything with that, you're just leaving it folded. When we stitch, we'll be stitching halfway into that. So again, I've placed my finished edge of my zipper at the 1/2 inch mark from the raw edge of the zipper tab, or zipper panel, I mean, sorry. And I've pinned it all the way across, right to the edge where we have it pressed under. You'll now baste this in place. This is where you'll want to switch to a zipper foot if you have one. You will baste this zipper in place. When you sew, you'll stop halfway through the zipper panel where it's folded, and it'll look like that. So now it is attached to your exterior zipper panel. You'll now take one of your lining pieces. You didn't have to mark that 1/2 inch mark. I did, just to make sure everything lines up. I pin my zipper panels together on both edges. So the raw edge, I make sure they match up, and I make sure the folded edges match up. Then I pin along the top edge where the zipper is. Just like that. So everything is all lined up nicely and neatly. And now I will sew this. To sew this, you'll start on the raw edge where there's a raw edge. You'll sew up using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You'll stop with your needle down, turn your zipper panels, and sew this top seam. So you're sewing where you originally sewed to attach the zipper with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way across, and you'll stop when you get to the end where this folded edge is, and you'll backstitch there. So again, starting on the raw edge, you'll sew up using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, turn your zipper panel and sew across, sewing the zipper panel, lining zipper panel to the zipper panel that you have already attached your zipper to with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stopping on the edge where you have the folded in. For added reinforcement, when I stitch up this short edge, I like to backstitch at that corner just to give it added reinforcement for when I'm cutting and trimming and turning this right side out. As you can see from both sides, I've sewn along the short raw edge with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stopped, left my needle down, turned my fabric, and continued stitching along with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. This edge here, where they are folded in, will not be sewn, it will be left open. Now you'll want to trim this corner. You can even trim this down a little bit if you want, just to reduce the bulk in the seam. So the corner right here, where you came up and you stitched and you turned, that's where you're trimming. I avoid trimming my zipper as much as I possibly can, just so that it doesn't fray and start coming undone within the seam of your zipper panel. I've actually had that happen before when I was trimming zippers, and I've had them unravel in my seams, and there's nothing worse than a zipper that's unraveled in a seam and you have to pick apart a whole bag just to try and fix it. Once you have that done and trimmed, you'll turn it and press out carefully that corner using a poking tool that you use. I use this precision turning tool. You can use a chopstick, anything to gently poke that corner out. Once you get the corner poked out, you'll press these fabrics so that they are wrong sides together. You can add clips to make sure everything lines up first and then press, but you'll press this so it is wrong sides together, just like that. So I'm going to go press this. Okay, so now that I have this all pressed, I'm going to clip my edges, the raw edges, together just to make sure nothing shifts on me. Another thing I wanted to note, when you're pressing, avoid pulling on your zipper to press. This can actually cause your zipper to be wavy because you're stretching it and pulling on it. So when you're pressing, just pull your fabric, not your zipper, down and then press. Avoid, again, pulling on your zipper because this can cause it to be wavy. Now that it's all clipped and pressed, what you're going to do is you're going to sew along the edges using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, including down at the bottom. You'll baste these together. So starting at the one end here, the corner, you'll sew up with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, needle down, turn your fabric, sew along here. Again, when you get to this corner, needle down, turn your fabric, sew. When you get to the corner, repeat. You'll sew all along all 4 edges using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that is how your 1/2 of your zipper panel will look when completed. Just like that. Next, we'll repeat this for the remaining exterior and lining zipper panels and the other half of the zipper. So you'll just repeat the same thing on the opposite side. So when I'm attaching the other end, because I want this to be in the middle, I made my mark here from the raw 1/2 inch in from the raw edge, and my folded edge is here. I take my zipper, I place it face down, still leaving it zipped up so that I can line everything up, and I pin it in place. So the edge of your zipper that you folded at a 90-degree angle will line up with that 1/2 inch mark that you made, and then I pin. Again, I leave it zipped when I first start pinning, then I unzip the zipper and pin all along that edge, pinning the zipper to the exterior zipper panel all the way down. I will then baste this in place. When I baste, I use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I will start right at the end where my 1/2 inch mark was made on the end of the zipper, stitch all the way across, and I'll stop when I get about halfway through the folded end of the zipper panel. Now that I've attached the exterior to the other half of the zipper, I'm going to pin my lining just as I did the first time to my exterior zipper panel, lining up the short raw edges and the folded edges, and then pin along the top where the zipper is, sandwiching the zipper between the 2 zipper panels. That was the word I was trying to find earlier and couldn't think of it. Again, I'm going to sew this going up the short raw edge using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stop with my needle down, turn my fabric, and sew this long edge with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way to the end where the folded edge is. Then I will trim the corner where the zipper is, avoiding trimming the zipper. As I mentioned before, when I've trimmed zippers, I often have had them come unraveled. I had it in one bag and it was hard because I had to pick the whole bag apart just to fix it. Another bag that it happened on, I just ended up gluing it. You'll press that corner out. If you're finding there's a little bit too much bulk still, you can trim the corner down a bit more. You'll then take this to the iron and you'll press your zipper panels away from your zipper. So I'll go do that with this half. Okay, now that I have it pressed, I'll pin the edges so that they stay together and nothing shifts on me. And then I'm going to sew all around all 4 edges using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, pivoting at each corner. If you're worried about getting angled stitches in the corner, what I like to do sometimes is lower my stitch length down to 0, take 1 stitch, put my stitch length back to its original stitch length, and then continue, and I'll repeat that at each corner. This prevents the angled stitches in the corners, and it just looks a little bit nicer for you. And there is your completed zipper panel. You'll put this to the side for now. We don't need this. We're not installing the zipper end until later in the pattern, so you'll just leave this loose like this. So put this off to the side. Okay, next we need our 2 zippers, the 2 remaining zippers, and our zipper tabs. For this step, you will place one of your zipper tabs right sides together with your zipper. So the zipper tab is right sides together with the zipper, so that when it's sewn, it'll look like this. You'll place a zipper tab on each end of the zipper. And then you will sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that is done, you will press the zipper tab away from the zipper. I just like to give this a finger press so that it looks like that. And then you will top stitch this across the zipper tab using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both ends. You'll repeat this whole process for attaching your zipper tabs to the final zipper. So I'll do that now. Again, zipper is right sides together with the zipper tab. The final step for these is to trim your zipper tabs so that they are even with the zipper tape. You want them to be the same width, so you just go ahead and trim. You can use a rotary cutter and ruler if you prefer. I'm just using my scissors. And this is how they will look once they are completed, with top stitched and trimmed so that they are even with your zipper. Put these to the side for now.